Welcome to the Spa Girls podcast. Each week we bring you self-publishing tips, tools and resources for authors. I'm Cheryl Phipps.
I'm Wendy Vella.
And I'm Trudy J.
Hello. Welcome.
Welcome. Hopefully I can speak better now.
This week we are without Shah. She is gallivanting around the world.
Exciting times for our Shah.
I know. I wish I was gallivanting around the world.
Mm-hmm.
But instead, I am here with the delightful Wendy and Cheryl, and we are going to talk about goal, motivation, and conflict as it relates to genre. So this month in the spa, we've been talking genre in the Facebook group and on the page, and we're just decided to try and look at it in a different way, like find some and talk about it, how you can use or how genre changes the basics of what you're writing, I guess, like when you're using something like goal, motivation, conflict, which is kind of how you set up your characters, and how it changes for different genres.
And because we write such different stuff too, so none of us write anything the same. It works quite well.
So we thought it was a good opportunity. We're just going to talk about our three genres. So urban fantasy, cozy mystery, and historical romance are the three we've chosen, and go through the goal, motivation, conflict for some of the main characters. And we're going to question each other and figure out how it is different and how it's the same, and what maybe we need to think about, and if there's just how
totally free range and just letting it out there. Shah's not here to control us, so we're just we're just quite happy to just free range.
But I also think what we're going to say today, hopefully, fingers crossed, would lend itself to any genre. So there's definitely crossovers there between what we're going to say, but also for what you're writing.
I think it's just also the idea of knowing your own genre and knowing the kind of goals, motivations, and conflicts or whatever it is that so it's just like looking at how the differences that we put forward. And does that make sense? I'm kind of
because let's face it, if everyone was happy, like you said, and they just loved each other, and there was no aggravation, it'd be just over in 2 pages, They just fall into each other's arms, like you said, and just like that would be it.
No point really, they'd all be the same.
You know it.
Exactly. All right, so I think we said we'd start with me, so
we did.
Why not? Let's get going. So urban fantasy is my genre.
And we're going to work on specific books we've written or are writing.
Yes, just so that we've got actual characters. Because the other thing is you can talk in generics about, say, goal, motivation, conflict, but you want them to be specific, I think. I pulled out the book by Debra Dixon when I was preparing for this and read some of what she says. And one of the things she did say was you want to be really specific about your goal and your motivation, especially. And the conflict, I guess, comes in on that as well. So,
and quite often when you're writing and you haven't got those things dialed in, you actually have to go back and think, okay, well, this is all very nice, but where are we going here? What's the conflict?
Exactly. I think that's what, and it's funny because I've talked about this in the podcast, how I went back and I looked at the Demon series and I was trying to fix things and figure out. And one of the things my editor said is that I didn't say the motivation for my character early on, and that was a problem. And I hadn't really realized that. I was trying to hide and keep it sneaky and not let anyone know what her.
Because you knew.
So I knew that it was a good motivation. And the point with this is that actually up front you need to make the reader know exactly what the goal is, and then have them understand the motivation. Because if they don't know those two things, they're not going to go with you on this journey. They don't care about that character until they know what their goal is and they understand why they're trying to achieve that goal, because they're not actually connecting to them. And this is what Matt Bird said as well. He talked to us about the same kind of thing. Like if you don't let that kind of motivation show through really clearly, then it's not going to be, the readers are just not going to be there.
It's all important stuff, conflict especially, I think it drives the story forward, and that's why you can't have 2 characters that just love each other on sight.
Exactly. So it's that
so they can.
Let's get going with Trudy's book.
Let's talk the specifics. So
let's talk goal, Trudy.
What's the name of the book first?
So it's called Wolf's Heart, and it's the one that I'm working on currently, just because it's in my head. I can remember all the characters and I know what's happening, which is helpful. And also I think I've worked quite hard on terms of not like I didn't do goal motivation conflict specifically, but I have those quite clearly in my mind in terms of what she wants and how it works. So it's Wolf's Heart. It's a paranormal. Okay, maybe urban I don't have fantasy? It a worked. Yeah, it's more of an urban fantasy, but it has a romance in it, so it has a strong romantic line through it, and it is a wolf shifter book. So it's about a character who is in a pack that's not a very nice pack with not a very nice alpha, and her goal is to get away from this evil alpha and find a new pack, but it's kind of almost impossible to do that because it's the alpha that controls who is part of the pack and who is not and how you get out. So for her, the only way that she's figured out is to escape from her pack, and it's also a wolf can't be packless. They go crazy. They devolve into madness if they are on their own. They have to be linked to a pack as part of that. So she doesn't have the option of becoming a lone wolf. She has to find another pack, and the only place she can go is this place called the Cursed Lands, which has been cursed and is impossible to break through except if you meet a certain criteria.
So her goal is to escape.
Yes. Sorry, yes, I did get distracted by the details story.
There. We were going down that story rabbit hole for a while. We thought we'd rein you back in.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. So her goal is to survive. So what's her motivation? To escape. But what's her motivation?
So if the goal is to get out of there, the motivation is that she has a very particular kind of power. It's one where if she mates with another wolf, she amps up their power and makes them really powerful. And so what happened is that her sister married this alpha and he became all powerful, which is how he ended up so evil and mean.
But what's her motivation?
So she has the same one, and he's basically wanting to mate with her. The sister dies, he wants to mate with her, so she doesn't want to mate with him. Yes. She's kind of protecting everyone almost. She's protecting herself because she doesn't want to mate with her.
Her motivation is she wants to protect.
But also, yeah, she's protecting. So she's also protecting everyone else because if he mates with her, she's even stronger than her sister. And
he'll be even stronger.
He'll be even stronger, and he'll be more powerful, like crazy. Yeah,
so she's got two motivations. One is to look after herself and get out, but it's also she's conflicted because she's keeping the rest of her pack safe.
Yeah.
But surely, if she left, her pack would be safe.
I don't know if they'll be safe, but at least it won't be as bad as if he got to mate.
Because he can't mate with her.
Yeah.
She's not there.
So
but she has to find another pack.
Yeah.
Because it's either mate with this guy or die if she doesn't.
Yeah. Madness and death.
Madness.
Okay. Mate with this guy. So
her motivation is, tell us what her motivation is exactly now.
Her motivation is to protect herself and others from the repercussions of mating with this guy.
Perfect.
Right? Okay.
Nice. Yes, it is. So if we moved on to conflict, tell us the conflict.
So I guess part of the conflict is that she can't just leave the pack. That there is
there's a real she's
she would get worried, to go mad, and so she had to find another way, and she thinks that she's found another way, but what's happened is she makes it through into this cursed pack. It's covered by this particular spell put in place by the Fae, and she's gone into the pack, but the pack don't immediately accept her. So
because she's new, she's because the new kid on the block.
Yeah, well, there's actually like a whole.
Yeah, we're not going to go down.
No, let's not. I know. So there's a reason that they're not going to accept her into the pack. So they, instead of going immediately, yes, sure, you can join our pack, they say, okay, you can stay on a provisional basis.
We basically have to test you and trial you to make sure you are.
And so she has to prove that she's okay. And so, but if she can't prove that she's worthy, they'll just chuck her out. And then on the other side of that, if she has to go outside the Cursed Lands again, the baddie alpha is there waiting for her. So she's got this kind of tension between.
Okay, so if you broke down the conflict into basics, what would it be?
So if
you're enjoying this,
goal,
aren't you?
Every minute of it, because it's just so her. She cannot cut down things down to a few words. You or I would go conflict, blah 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 blah, but not her.
No, just remember your turn is coming, buddy.
This is good. This is good for me too. I am enjoying this as well. Don't you worry. So if her goal is to get out of the pack and to survive without the pack, then the conflict has to be something that's stopping her from doing that. And I guess what stops her is the threat of going to madness, or the threat of not being
leaving her people and exposed to him.
And
you know, there's a few conflicts there, if we're being honest. She's actually torn a few ways there.
It's actually overlapping, isn't it, with the motivation, the conflict is,
well, the conflict has to be connected, is my understanding, that you have.
So she wants to go, she's found a way to go, but she's leaving her people exposed to the wrath of the baddie. And then she's going to a pack that don't accept her, so there's a lot of conflict there.
I mean, they're not the pack that she goes to are not a bad pack. Like, she would love to join them, like, it's not. And we
don't really care about what they're like.
I know, but the conflict for them is that they think she's part of the bad alpha, like they're okay. So there's a whole nother level of, like, the spell that's been protecting them is breaking down, and so they are waiting. They fear that this.
Know it.
Okay. All right, I'll stop now.
Okay, let's go to goal. What's her goal?
So her goal is,
give us a basic goal in one sentence. This is your you got it, girl.
Sentence. Okay. One sentence.
This is your cliffhanger, your tagline.
Tagline.
So my goal, this is my goal, right? That we're talking. Yeah. So the goal is to escape her pack and to find a new pack that can accept her and not
but that doesn't tell us why.
No. Surely
the goal is to survive leaving her pack. That's what her goal is.
And isn't it also to find a way to help her pack?
Yeah, but leaving her, it is, but that's the conflict that's stopping her leaving.
I think
the
the thing she
goal,
feels like she's
overarching goal is finding a way to leave, and all of these other little things are threads that stop her from leaving, aren't they? You know, the conflicts, they're all different things, but the overarching goal is one simple thing. She wants out, she wants to get to safety. That's her goal.
I don't know though, because it's not just getting safety, because she gets out early on, right? Like, she actually leaves her pack early on and goes to the new pack, and part of her goal in there is actually to convince the new pack to accept her, and so that she doesn't become packless. Like, it's a whole, because being packless for a wolf in this story is the worst thing possible. Like, you being part of the community
but even so, I still think that there is a bigger goal here, because that's kind of like two things that are happening to her along the way. But I'm sure that there must be a bigger goal, like, is it somehow finding a way to help her people that she's left behind.
She wants freedom.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
The restraints of being in with this guy, but she wants freedom for her people as well.
Exactly.
So she's conflicted because she goes and leaves them exposed.
But she, by staying, she'd make them worse off.
Exactly.
So it's not exposed necessarily. They're not. I don't think their lot changes. In fact, in some ways, their lot becomes better, because he's the sister that was providing them with power has died, so that he's not as powerful as he used to be. She needs to leave before he can mate with her and make himself even more.
And then her freedom is for her safety. And the safety of her people.
Also safety of people.
So that's kind of her goal. And but then also to survive as well, like to not, because at first she thinks she's just going to have to leave and then go into madness. So when she just, the fact that she can go to another pack means that she gets to survive. So it's a lot of finding another pack and surviving, continuing on, and not having her power abused.
Sounds good to me. I think we've nailed you down.
Okay, good.
I think, Are you happy with that? I hope you wrote that
all down.
That's gold, just quietly, okay?
Okay,
all gold.
Thank you, Wendy.
Okay, you want to re-listen to this?
Let's do Wendy now.
No, let's do Cheryl now.
No, Wendy, you were writing hard that time. I feel like you need to go next. So your one is historical romance.
I'm going to go with one of my oldest books, actually. It's probably one of the first books I ever wrote, because the others I can't work out.
It's so full of it.
No, this one's a very clear cut, I believe.
Which one is it?
Lady in Disguise, it's called. It's the first book in the Langley Sisters series. I've written a lot of books since then. So her goal is to survive, a little bit like your one.
Okay.
She
survive what?
What's her motivation?
Her father dies. Leaves her penniless. Actually kills himself. She leaves her penniless. And she doesn't want society to know that they're penniless, because that'll upset the hopes of her sisters to get good marriages, but they've got no money. So for her to survive back in the Regency era, where men earned all the money and it was unheard of for a woman to do anything, she has to do it in a way that doesn't, she has to think outside the box to survive. So her goal basically is to survive. Her motivation is to ensure her sisters are cared for, that their reputations stay intact. And then the conflict, she's got to overcome her upbringing, the morals she's been raised on, because what she does to survive is she actually becomes a highway woman, highway man, highway person. And she knows that she's that desperate for money that this is the only way she can work out that she can get the money that quickly. It's wrong on many levels, but this is what she does.
It's kind of like a Robin Hood scenario, isn't it?
It is.
She's only stealing from the...
She only steals from... She knows some people in her that she doesn't like very much, and those are the ones she steals from. But
so this is good, right? Because this is so because you're so clear on the goal, the motivation, conflict, let's break it down, because it's so the goal is also directly linked to the conflict, right? So she wants to survive and earn money, but the conflict is that she can't. She's a woman.
That's right. And she refuses to just bow down and get married. She's not going to just marry,
because that would be the easy way out, wouldn't it? She'd just marry whoever.
It would be. And there's not really, the one man she wants to marry was the one who left her many years ago, and she would rather one of her sisters married well. But for one of her sisters to marry well, she then has to make sure they don't lose face and they appear to be everything they've always been. So for her to do that, she has to come into a considerable amount of money fast to ensure that she can see this happen.
And that's just more motivation, isn't it? Keeping up appearances.
And she's got her sister's sick. She needs, stuff like that. So desperate times call for desperate measures is what I think with this book. And that's why she will then think outside the square and go, right, what am I good at? I'm good at riding my horse. Yeah. And I can shoot really well. Yeah. So that's what drives her.
This is interesting, because this is the other thing that Matt Bird talked to us about as well, is talk about believability. And this is how we use the goal and the motivation create believability, right? So I mean, if you on the surface of it, a woman jumping on a horse and becoming a highwayman is a bit crazy, but when you have the situation where you set it up where it's like her father kills himself, they're desperate, they're in the society where there's no way out, and you make it believable. Her motivation is
you're layering on those conflicts, like the man who takes her father's title as her cousin, and he's a horrible man and he wants to kick her out of the house because he wants the house, and then there's that layer on top of that layer on top of that layer. So suddenly she's forced into a corner that she has to deal with straight away, and to do that she has to get money fast. This is the only way she can see of doing that.
So if you had made a motivation that was weaker, so it was so there was no desperate times, there was no. She just was this lady of leisure who decided that she was bored. I was bored one day and thought, I know, I'll go out my horse and shoot some, then you wouldn't go with that as a reader. Like, you're not interested in that person. Whereas if you've got this woman who's desperate and she's dealing with extreme and circumstances, then that is what that's what's going to take us along there, and that's what we're doing when we create.
And the conflict's being amped up as you go along. The goal is still the same, but the motivation gets stronger, I think, because the conflict gets a lot worse.
That's right, and you're just layering that on as you're writing the book. To start with, the opening scene is she's robbing someone who happens to be the man who's come back to London, who she loves. But and then we go to the scene why she's robbing them, and you don't dump it all in that first chapter, because it's in his point of view. But so I mean, I think, and that's the thing I've always found. I'm not a huge plotter, but I've found that if things aren't working, there usually one of those three things is not on point, and you don't know what the goal is deep down for your character. You really don't. And I'm talking hero and heroine. They've both got to have a goal.
Yes. They've got to be so well developed that it's all believable. So everything that comes after is absolutely fits in.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about the hero. What are his goals, motivations, and conflict? Do you have that clear as well?
Well, I should do by now. It's like 10 years ago. But who knows? But so he left home because he was the younger son and couldn't fit into the mold that his brother wanted him to be, and he was just a bit of a rebelled against his father dying and his brother taking over. So many things. So he just left, went overseas, made his money in India, you know, rah, rah, rah. But he was the one person she could always rely on as a friend, and someone who she loved when she was younger, and used to follow him around everywhere. And then all of a sudden he just left her when she needed him the most. He wasn't around. And so his motivation is to try to right the wrongs of leaving the way he did, and bringing his family back into the fold, and letting them explaining why he did what he did, and, you know,
forgiveness.
Forgiveness. He wants their respect again, and the same thing with her. So but he also wants to protect her, because he begins to realize what's going on. And then, so that's where he comes from. He comes from a place where he's trying to right the wrongs of what he's done.
And the conflict will be that she's so upset with him that she's not going to allow him to just come back into her life and just take over, or
she's not the person he left
her anymore.
She's very different, you see, because she's not the little girl who's the, you know, the daughter of the earl and the rah rah rah. She's none of those things anymore. She's a bit of a hard ass. I'm not sure if I'm going to say ass, but hard ass. And she's a totally different person too. So they're actually both totally different people who have to get to know each other again. And this causes conflict, because she's no longer the one who will yield to him, and he can't sort of work out why she's so different. You know, it's all wonderful, juicy stuff.
No, that's awesome. The other thing I wanted to talk about was how the goal motivation conflict is affected by genre in this story. So, for example, I think in historical there is a lot of that whole societal expectations tends to be a conflict that happens quite often.
There are huge expectations in you know, where you sit in society dictates how you behave.
That becomes a point of conflict in most regencies or historical romances, doesn't it?
It's a lot. It's
one of the reasons why I love them. I think, like, for me personally, it's like that idea of like these people have to they're almost fighting against those restrictions often. Like these kind of people
I think
don't fit the box.
The people who are writing them are modern day thinkers, and so we're putting our modern day slant onto a time. I mean, I don't write a traditional true regency. I write a regency from a standpoint. It's almost like a modern romance put in the restrictions of that sort of historical
society,
time. You know,
clothing,
I mean, I could never write a traditional, because I just wouldn't be able to do it. But I mean, I think it's an interesting time, purely and simply because no one alive today's ever lived in there. So you got a lot of license around what you're writing.
Although not too much, because you still have to follow the conventions of the time.
Oh yeah, had a few of those emails.
And the other so the other thing is that it's a romance, right? And with a romance, there's conflict in the romance, right? And you've given us these awesome conflicts that you have, and then, but they're different. Like, so one thing that Debra Dixon mentions in the book that I wanted to mention was that she says the goal in romance is not to fall in love and get married. Like, literally, if that was the goal of the two main characters, they'd just walk together, kiss, and end up in bed and live happily ever after. Like, it wouldn't be a story. So often they've got another goal that's often a direct contrast to falling in love, that actually falling in love is an inconvenience to them. So your story is actually quite a good example of that, right? Like, this guy coming back is actually not that convenient for her.
She's chosen her path, and she's focusing all her focus and attention is on her sisters, who are going to marry well.
And he knows her too well, so he is able to see beneath the veneer of what she's trying to cover up.
We got it all dialed in. I think when we're sorted, I might have to rewrite that book.
Why?
And I'm going to
just layers, thank you.
Okay, go Cheryl. I think we're on to Cheryl, Cozy Mystery Girl now.
All right.
What's your book, Cher?
Well, I think I'm going to go with the last series that I've written, not the last book, but the first book in the series is called Witchy Awakening, and it's relatively new, and it's Paranormal Cozy Mysteries, which is also new to me this year. I was going to go with one of the others, but it was also about sisters, so I thought, no, we'd try something different. So Paranormal Cozies, the goal in the cozy is always to solve the mystery, always. It's just black and white. You know, there's room for lots of other things, but that is the main goal. Let's solve the mystery. So there's going to be a murder, and our main character, and it's usually every cozy mystery, I think, pretty much is in the through the eyes of the main character and her alone, really. It's not that's not written in stone. That's just what the majority of them are like. Unless you're Richard Osman, and then you have 50 characters and you have a point of view for all of them, which is kind of exhausting, but well done him. So the goal is to solve the mystery.
What's the motivation then?
No, the motivation is to solve it. I don't know. I think save the day. So by catching the killer, solving the crime, the town is going to be safe. Her friends are going to be safe. Her neighbours. It's a very small community, so everybody matters. Even the people that aren't so good, you don't. It's like justice is very even. You have to. You're not going to go out and shoot the killer. That's not your job. Your job is just to pick up all the clues and put them all together, because the police are always a little bit inept in a cozy mystery.
So how many main characters are we talking here? Do we just writing in one point of view here?
We're writing in one point of view, but that's not to say that there isn't another main character, because yes, Trudy.
Trudy's got her hand up. Can someone please answer her question?
Yes.
She thinks if she puts her hand up, she can butt in it, you see. That's how she rolls. Go, Trudy. Go.
No, I was just thinking though, even if you only got one point of view, you've still got, for example, the person who was the murderer.
Yes.
And you kind of need to know their goal, motivation, and conflict too, don't you? Like, you kind of need to know why they
you
killed
do,
the
but
person.
it's definitely not, like if it was a suspense or something like that, you might actually go into that character. With a cozy mystery, you don't tend to. Nothing I'm saying is set in concrete. Yes, true.
So,
although is that sometimes how you figure out that the bad guy is the bad guy, because there was some kind of, if they were like, I don't know, they did it to get even with their next door neighbor who they had a huge argument with, then finding out that the two neighbors were fighting becomes part of how they figure it out. Is that how it works?
Absolutely. But what you have to remember is the cozy mystery is you're going to have a lot of red herrings, which means you have probably 3 characters at least who could have done the crime.
Yeah.
They had the time, they had some motivation, right? So you have to give them motivation, obviously.
So the baddie is always showing up at some stage before he's revealed, yeah?
Yes.
It would actually be quite annoying if you didn't have them from the start, right?
And I don't know what other cozy mystery authors do. I mean, I have spoken to quite a few, and some really, really amazing ones. But for me, I have the baddie figured out, and then I change my mind. Because it's just too darn obvious. Nobody wants to read the book and they know who the killer is from the first or second page or the second, chapter. You want to be thinking it could be them. Oh, hang on, it could be them. And that's exactly what you want. So
so you know the goal and motivation for multiple characters then, but they're not necessarily point of view or main characters. They're just there and
And then
it's hard writing a suspense like that, isn't it?
Well, it is. It's actually very enjoyable, because I tell you what, as much as, because I write romance as well, but as much as you get that aha moment in a romance, when you get in a cozy mystery, it's like, oh my crikey, I was going to swear there, but I didn't. Like, I did not see that coming, and you're the writer. I know other writers do that too, but I just get really excited about it, as you can tell.
So we've got motivation. What's the conflict in a nutshell?
Well, the conflict is that she shouldn't be doing any of this. She's just
what does she do? What is her life?
All of my female sleuths, and they are female, are bakers, or they own a cafe, or they're one's a celebrity chef. That they all do this in all my series. And so in this one, Witchy Awakening, she is a baker in Portland, and basically she ran away from home. She didn't run away. She left home when she was in her 20s, because her mother was so busy with her own store, which sells lotions and potions and things like that, because she's very into earthy things and all that. She had no time for her daughter. She loved her, but she had no time for her. And she was actually just fed up with the whole thing. So she leaves, she goes to Portland, she starts a life, she becomes a baker, but she's working for a horrible guy in a bakery, and she's the star of the show, but he can't ever let you see that. He's just a horrible man. So one day, her mother passes away. And she has to go back to her hometown of good fortune and, you know, sort out everything. And after all the nosy neighbours have come round and bought food and all that, and they leave, she's absolutely exhausted. And her cat's like, well, thank goodness they've gone. So suddenly, in chapter 1, she's at a funeral, and now she has a talking cat. And the cat explains that she's actually a witch. So now she's in her midlife, and her whole life has changed. And first of all, she has to solve the fact that the cat explains that there's now a body buried in her garden.
So, I love that cat straight away.
Yeah. Exactly. He's very snarky, very, very snarky cat, which a lot of cozy mysteries have an animal that is, but they don't talk.
You know how she's not loved by her mother?
Yeah.
Is she constantly seeking someone to love her? Is that part of the story? Would that be wrapped up in this?
She didn't think so, but actually all she wanted was her mother's approval and her mother's love, but she actually wanted her attention. And because she's midlife, so she's like, you know, I should be over all this by now. Yeah. But her mother has hired an assistant who she adores, and that's a whole nother story. I'm not going to go into the assistant, but her mother comes back as a ghost. Because one of her first jobs was to bring her mother back to life at the funeral. And because she's new to it and she's just coming into her powers and she's not very good, she makes a huge mistake. And brings her back her mother turns into a ghost. Okay. So now she's got all this guilt. But, you know, as the story progresses, we find out that her mother had a sickness, and her sickness, her talent was to help people, right? So it became a sickness because she couldn't say no, and it drained her and it made her physically sick. And the baddie pounced on this. So it's very, very convoluted. I don't know if I'm explaining anything very well at all because I can see it in my head. Yeah. But she has lots of conflicts all the way through.
That's what I'm saying. And that strengthens the story, right?
Because that's,
if she had the basic, just like, oh, she's come home, she's, you know, rah, rah, but slowly we're learning with the layers of the conflict that we know that the reason why she is, why her mother's like she is.
Because you can have more than one goal, more than one motivation, and more than one conflict. There isn't just one. I think you have probably one main one, and then one's underneath. But I think
one of their things is that they are supposed to help people. That is what they're supposed. That's why they're here, to help people, help humans. Yeah,
the witches. Is that right? Yeah. So she's not only just this person who's come back to deal with her mother's death and all the problems associated with that, but she's someone who's got this layer of wanting that she never got the attention she needed. Yeah. Plus she's got this talking cat and she's now a witch. I mean, these are all kind of complications and things.
And even as she's trying to accept all of that, she realizes that she's now stuck running the store, but her passion is baking.
Yeah.
So that's actually the thread of the series rather than just that book.
Is she going to start a bakery up? Of course she is.
But it's the secondary characters who also help with that. The whole conflict.
The cat, oh my God, the cat is like always digging at her because the cat is actually being handed down from the mother. So the cat is hundreds of years old.
Yeah, and very much
just have 9 lives.
Got the mother's characteristics, I should imagine.
And he's like, she did the best she could, you know, and you're just being very childish and all that sort of thing, which of course she kind of is, but she does.
But not really, because she's got wounds.
Yeah. She's got wounds,
She does have wounds. I tell you what, 3 different stories then, right?
Yeah. And plus, let's not forget that the police officer is also pretty fine. His name, by the way, is Officer Fine.
And there's the love interest right there.
Yeah, that's a love interest. So what and what's particular to cozy mystery then, like in terms of the kind of motivations and goals that the I mean, you say that it's always to solve the murder, but I imagine that, so that's maybe the main goal, but there's always these secondary goals underneath must change.
Well, I think there's a reason where they are when they are. So that person has come into their small town, either they're coming back or they've lived there all their lives or whatever. So there's lots of other characters around, but they all want to help people, That is a common thread, actually. They all want to help people, and they want to do it in such a way that they develop into a stronger person because of it, you know, because they don't want to be seen as a hero. They just want to get it done. And they, for some reason, because of whatever talents they have had, and one of my heroines, her grandfather was like a Secret Service guy, so she has physical talents, you know. You just layer that in to the genre. It's part of who they are, that they have this talent, you know. You could have a bumbling sleuth, you could have all kinds of sleuths, but the fact is that they have an ability to put the pieces together for the puzzles and solve the crime. And
maybe a sense that other people are not doing it properly, like that
or not
they
doing
are
it fast enough, or
they're the only one that can kind of do this and get to the
well,
right
it's their
solution.
superpower, right? It's
it is
how they roll.
And maybe it's even the way that they look at things. They might look at things a little bit differently, or
and you can use that, right? Like you use so this, if they're looking through it of the lens of a witch who has a talking cat and is maybe good with herbs or whatever, you know, like there's certain perspective that she's got that's gonna solve something that maybe Officer Fine won't actually see from his perspective or whatever.
Yes, because he can only do what he can do because of the law, whereas she can slip under the law and do things, you know, not terrible things, but, you know, like breaking into the house next door because she's a witch. She can do that. Or apart from that, she knew where the key was. But you know, he can't do that. He can't, you know, unless he's got reason. He's got to have a warrant and all that sort of thing. So he's not going to enable her, but he's not always going to stop her from doing what she needs to do either.
So is their goal something? Is there another goal that's associated with that kind of thing, like the idea of them being a goal? I guess it is just justice, but a goal to solve things, or a goal to well, I think especially if it's somebody that they know that's been hurt, you know, they it is justice. It isn't revenge, you know, because they're not wicked people. They're not doing anything terrible. And in fact, if something bad happens because of them, you know, it's really disturbing for them. Actually, that's a really good point about cozies. It's like it's not like another kind of thriller where you could maybe have a dubious or morally grey main character. It is always kind of this really nice character who is doing things with the best of intentions, right? So the kind of goals and motivations you could have within that context are different than if it was a thriller, for example. You know what I mean?
I mean, I think each genre, every genre, contemporary, you know, comedy, small town romance, they're all different. But there's a thread, right? And that is goal, motivation, conflict. You've got to have that. You've got to have that thread. You've got to have it dialed in.
But the point being is that it's different. Like, so the kinds of goals and motivations you would have for characters in a like
a
so
small
we talked
town
about
romance as opposed to a cozy mystery or historical or an urban fantasy.
And if you could get really strong juxtapositions if you had, like, you see the difference between, say, a thriller and a romantic comedy, for example. If you're thinking in terms of maybe films or something, you know, like the kind of goals, like say maybe Jason Bourne, his goal was to figure out what was happening and who he was and why he knew all this stuff that he kind of knew, and to figure out the mystery of who he was, I guess. And
Harry Potter, the fact that because of that one incident where Voldemort, you know, zaps him with his wand, but the power comes back and hits him, and a piece of him goes into Harry Potter. You know, I mean, that you don't find that out right away.
No,
do you? You don't find out that he's actually part of him.
I mean, I think in a romance, the characters have got to be perfect for each other, but there has to be the sort of conflict and you know, to sort of drive them apart, which has to be believable, right? So that we obviously know that they're going to end up together and that they're made for each other. It's just all of the conflicts and stuff in between that, and the motivations that drives them apart.
And a good example of that, Debra Dixon talked about in her book, I think she said it was a book of hers, where she had a police officer investigating a fire, and then the heroine was a pyromaniac who was defending and kind of trying to prove her innocence of towards this fire, trying to prove that she hadn't done it, even though she was known to be a pyromaniac. And it's like, you kind of look at that and go, oh my God, how are they ever going to get together? Because it's like completely opposite.
And it could be something really basic, like he doesn't believe anyone will love him. It's something simple, because in his past, why he was never loved, he's never had good examples of love relationships, you know, and she can be the other way around, Little Miss Sunshine, who believes, you know, like, so there's just very basic things that can create conflict.
Is that why Grumpy Sunshine works so well? I just love Grumpy Sunshine. It's just
I think so.
It's just that opposite thing where you kind of know that it seems like they shouldn't get together, but they do, or something. Like it's the conflict of that.
Yeah, that's right. And you know, there's so many opposites. That's opposites attract, really, isn't it?
Yes,
too, you know, I mean, there's so many. Those friends to lovers, all those things, they all layer in there to add to the conflict.
Well, you think about it, they are essentially conflict, right? Like, like enemies to lovers. Well, there's always something there. Opposites attract. It's like, why were these two people who are completely different ever?
Friends to lovers, the brother doesn't want anyone to go near his sister, you know, or you know, whatever. You know, there's just so many reasons, isn't there? You know, a solo dad who never wants to give his heart again because it didn't work the first time. He's not going down that road, you know, like this.
Secret baby because he broke her heart and she doesn't want to have anything to ever do with him.
That's right.
Another thing she talks about is they need to be urgent and important. And that's a good one. Like the
conflict.
The conflicts. Or the goal needs to be like something that you want to. So the goal needs to be I need to save my cafe because I'm about to, you know, I'm being the landlord is putting up the rent and I can't afford it. So that might be the goal, to save it. But why does she need to save it so badly? Why not just walk away and start again? Well, maybe
because it was her mother's and she's keeping her legacy alive, and there's no way, or it's the only thing stopping her from keeping her family, you know, going, or her daughter.
She made a promise.
That's right.
Made a promise
to her. And those are the things that strengthen the goal.
There's a treasure buried underneath the thing, or there's a portal to the fairy realm in the back.
Talking outside the realm of normal there. That's your stuff. We're talking
that is her normal.
But see, that's my thing. Like that's what you'd need to have in a paranormal or a fantasy, right? Like there's that's the difference.
I'm just started writing a sort of Grumpy Sunshine now, and it's like, oh my gosh, it's hard. You know. Really hard.
And I think the thing is that when there's a story, or often it's movies, right? Like I'll watch a movie and I'll be like, there's something wrong with this. I watched a movie the other day and I was like, technically, it's a new release on Netflix, it's a rom-com-y kind of thing. And I was like, technically, this movie has everything, right? Technically, everything is here, but it does not catch my attention. And I think
not say the title. We do not.
No, I know.
No. That's my favorite rom-com.
I'm not telling you what it was, but I just thought, and I was sitting there, I was like, I want to discuss this with someone else because I want to figure it. And I think it's the motivations. I think it's the goals and the motivations of those two main characters weren't strong enough. And they had there was a scene where the main guy all muscled up comes walking out of the water all muscle, you know, like a
Pride and Prejudice moment.
Pride and Prejudice moment. Like, you know, it had everything, and it was just not there. And
they hit all the high points, but they didn't have the
actual connection wasn't there. As a watcher, I didn't feel the connection to those characters, and it was just funny because I was like, it was like everything was there, and it was like someone had kind of said, right, we need this scene and that scene, and there's at this point this needs to happen, and but it just didn't.
So what we're saying is, I think you can have the most basic of story outline. It can be, you know, we've read books that have been taken place in the same house for over long, or in this, you know, it's how you do with it, right? It's how you work in your goals and
how you amp up the conflict.
How you amp up the conflict. What's the motivation that's driving the story forward? I mean, I think that's the sign of a good writer is to be able to capture your interest. You know, right through a book that's actually not got a huge setting or huge scene or whatever.
And I think the point with the conflict is that not just to make it like character goes into the room, and then and something happens, and then they have to fight back, and then they do all this, that, and the next thing, and then they go to the next thing, and there's more. It's like that doesn't create conflict, because you've got to know why that character was in the room, and why they keep moving forward, and what it is that's driving
why they
them.
reacted that way.
Yeah, why they reacted that way. And if we don't know, if we just see this random character running towards the next thing and the next dangerous moment without really knowing or understanding why they're doing that, then we don't care. He's just an idiot. Like, why, like,
but I think
if he's doing it
as a writer, it's something you learn, right?
Yeah.
It's something that comes up over time. Our first books are not our best for a reason. I think we've covered off pretty much everything there.
You wanted to say?
We've talked about all our stories. We hope we didn't bore you to tears with those.
Hope we didn't ramble too much.
We don't like to ramble.
Shara will be listening to this going, what are they on?
What are they talking about this time?
Well, I think actually it just goes to show that we're passionate about our work. So I don't think in itself that's a bad thing.
No, and I think these are, to make a story work, these sort of goal, motivation, conflict, you've got to get them right.
Yeah,
I think so really too. Have to.
Whatever you write.
Yeah. It's if there's no conflict, there's nothing. You don't have a story, and if you don't, and if as readers there is no motivation or no goal that you can see the person in your book heading towards, then you don't care about them. That's literally how you make your readers care about your characters, is by giving them a goal and a motivation that we can understand, right? That we can connect to, that we can kind of go, of course she's trying to save her sisters, of course she's trying to get her mother's love, and like these are things that we can empathize with, and that connects us to the character, and then we're with them. And we're like right there going, come on, get over that conflict.
Nice.
It's fascinating.
So.
Awesome. Well, is that good? That's everything we want to say about goal, motivation, and conflict as relates to genre. The one thing I was going to say, I think we said it, but just make sure it's different for different genres, and you can do it more in depth. Like you could make it life or death in one book, versus the conflict is much more lighthearted and easygoing, but it's still there in a more lighthearted, say, romance, for example. So
it should fit the genre.
Fit the genre. You don't have, not every romance that you write has to have life or death stakes. That's not what we're talking about with conflict. It's just a conflict in terms of what they want to achieve. Which it's obvious in terms of the three things that I'm just dialing it in again, because that's the kind of obsessive compulsive person I am. Okay, so where is the place for us to be found? Who wants to?
Well, I think you can find us at spargirlspodcast.com and come and see us, and come and join us on Patreon. We've got a wonderful Facebook group that has lots of brilliant information and handouts and fun. So if you want to support us on Patreon, we'd love to have you there. But other than that, you can find us anywhere there's a Spa Girls thing.
Spa Girls thing. YouTube. I think it's always fascinating, but to watch people on YouTube and then get to see our expressions as we're talking about stuff.
I don't know about that.
And see Wendy rolling her eyes at me and things like
that.
No,
I don't do that. Never.
Awesome. All right.
Okay.
Well, thank you all for joining us for another episode of the Spa Girls podcast. We'll be back again next week. But for now, farewell.
Take care. Bye.